Chapter 41. Towards Hope. For many of us, the road is a difficult one, but the path is always there for us to follow, no matter how many times we fall. Madness. I stood there, the streamlet flowing behind absolutely everything, washing over my hooves, and stared at Calamity, my jaw unhinged. There was simply no other word. Calamity's plan was insane. Hell, it wasn't even a plan. Plans have plan stuff. Calamity had a bunch of ideas and vague hopes tied together by multiple points of, and then something happens. But we didn't have who or what we needed to try it. I doubted we could even get them. Well, he asked, earnestly seeking my approval. I'm beginning to agree with Velvet Remedy, I told him, recalling her reaction to his actions at the Zebratown Police Headquarters. So, you're willing to give it a try? God damn it. Calamity was staring at me with the eyes of a fool, hoping for my acceptance, my support of his madness. This plan, it was something he needed to try. Needed like a starving pony needs food. I manufactured a smile. I don't have a better plan, I admitted. Sure. We were all going to die. Watcher Spritebot bobbed in the rain beside us, silently listening. Finally, the mechanical voice that disguised Spike plaintively asked, "Is there anything I can do, guys? I'm really sorry." I thumped my rain-soaked forehead with an even wetter hoof. Think, you silly mare. Yes, I asserted, looking sidelong at the Spritebot. Yes, there is. What? Sprite asked. I waved a hoof. Just wait there a moment. First, I need to talk to God. What I don't understand, I told Calamity, as we started to walk towards the front of absolutely everything, is why the Wonderbolts haven't already hit us. The Wonderbolts are fast, right? Calamity looked askance. Fast. You could say that, yes. Lightning flashed across the sky. Shouldn't they have gotten to Earshot already? I reckoned, talking about the rumbling thunder above. It wouldn't take long for them to get my tag. Not if Lens Flare was as skilled as he sounded. And New Appaloosa was an awfully short flight from Ironshot firearms. They're probably caught up in the committee. Calamity smirked wildly. I halted, my hooves growing muddy. I gave Calamity a confused look. Surely, he wasn't saying they had to, file a hunting plan? Were all the ponies in the sky crazy? Calamity turned the corner, almost knocking over Railright. I heard the two stallions mumble apologies as I caught up. Railright was standing under the eave of Ditzy Doo's store, apparently waiting for some pony. At the sight of me, he nodded, then cast a furtive glance towards the lights along the city wall. Last I had seen Railright, he was escorting away several ponies who had dared to come below the Enclave's cloud cover. Where are the new Pegasi? I asked the sheriff/mayor, wondering just how much I'd slept through. Railright glanced at Calamity before answering. I've put them to work assisting the community. In return, they have a place in the common house till they can better situate themselves. I looked at Calamity questioningly. My Pegasus friend frowned, his tone sour as he informed me. Enclave radio broadcast an offer to aid the misplaced citizens. Tractor accepted the offer at face value and flew off, promising to contact Frost via Pitbuck as soon as he was skyward. That was over 6 hours ago. Calamity here was worming some sense into the other two mayors when the broadcast came on. Railright added. That mayor with the Pitbuck is some kind of ex-military, I think. Something about the broadcast spooked her proper. I found myself feeling distinctly worried for Tracker. And what brings you to the porch of Ditzy's, Sheriff? Calamity asked, trying to sound casual. Railrat shook his head as the Pegasus suspicions. I tried to remember that Railrat and Calamity had known each other for years. Their relationship had always been cordial, if not downright friendly, before Balefire bombs and rogue Pegasi got thrown into the mix. Getting a weather report from Grimfeathers, Railrat told him. Thunderstorm spreads across the shores of Buckland all the way to the edge of Hope. Storms cleansing the air of the smoke from Everfree, and there's a nasty rain out all over Splendid Valley. 'Cause that place needs to be more toxic, Calamity nickered. With our luck, that the broken weather over Everfree is keeping the storm out, Railrat added. It's almost like that place wants to be on fire. Hope? I asked Calamity. Yep, Calamity agreed. Then, seeing my confusion, you been there before, Lil Pip. The rubble that used to be Hope is only about half a few hours down the track. The town with the old weapons factory, Railrat clarified. Ironshot firearms. I remembered walking through the playground of Hope. I'd only seen my first Ministry of Morale posted there. I just hadn't known the town's name. And you got the array a few miles back from it, towards Everfree. The what now? I asked, confused. Array? Hope Solar Array, Calamity told me, sounding a little bored. Big bunch of dishes pointed at the clouds. Best I can gather, the ponies of Old World tried all sorts of crazy ways to get power when the coal supply started to struggle. Now that I didn't see. Granted, the only time I'd been up high enough to even have glimpsed it was out of the factory window. I was a bit busy outrunning collapsing catwalks. I paused to process this. Technology for turning sunlight into energy. Made sense, considering Twilight Sparkle's ministry had ever been working on weaponizing sunlight. And this Celestia 1, or Celestia Prime, or whatever they're calling it, can't even be cast unless it's sunny. I can't tell the princess that the only defense we have against those missiles can be defeated on a cloudy day. What if the zebras decide to attack us at night? Clearly, there were still bugs to be worked out, but even the hope of power for the wasteland was just one more reason Equestria deserved and needed to see the sun. Old generators and spark batteries weren't going to last forever. Clement was reaching his hoof towards the door when it swung open. Regina Grimfeathers framed in the doorway. My friend backed up as the griffin pushed her way out, nodding to all of us. The gun-toting adolescent griffin leaned against the wall where Dithy's sign had been and pulled out a pack of cigarettes. Absolutely everything's porch was getting crowded. Any y'all see where that little unicorn ran off to? Reggie asked casually as she lit up a cigarette. Since I was standing right here, I'd assumed the little unicorn she was talking about was Silverbell. Calamity had come to the same conclusion. Silverbell's missing? She'd been inside just a few minutes ago. Railrat bit his lower lip. I think I saw her head up to the toilets. Oh. Let's not form a search party then. I was mentally glaring daggers at Watcher as I added, give her some privacy. Coming swiftly on the hooves of that thought, the realization that New Appaloosa had public bathrooms struck me across the forehead like a nail board. Ow. Damn it. Of course they did. What had I been thinking? Now what you blushing about, Lil Pip? Oh, thank you, Calamity. Couldn't let that go unasked, could you? Nope. You were, saying something about committees? Calamity mercifully took the hint, jumping back at the former topic like he had never left it. Remember I told you about the Enclave that they keep Pegasi, who can do the sonic rain bloom real close? Well now, you can see why. With all the cloud tech the Enclave relies on, not to mention the cloud curtain, they view the sonic rain boom as a weapon of mass destruction. I looked towards where one of the raptors had come down on the town. Work lights had been set up, illuminating it through the pouring rain. The silhouettes of ponies moved about in it in the downpour, scavenging. You gotta realize, little Pip, that when the Pegasi closed the sky, we'd lost just one city. Just one. Granted, Cloudsdale was the biggest, but that still left several more that survived pretty much untouched by the war. All that pre-war technology and magic, they've been repurposing and recycling all the stuff for centuries. Lightning split the sky. Thunder pounded down on us like it was going to drive us into the mud. But they can't make no more. Calamity shouted. Pegasi can't make magical items like unicorns or zebras. There ain't nothing up there to build with except what's left from the past. And clouds. Clouds make for good Pegasi homes, but they ain't so useful for making armor and bullets. I remembered how my hoof passed right through the Enclave terminal interface. A few mountains that rise above the clouds have either been stripped of their resources or are homes to some nasty things that the Enclave would rather not piss off, like Spike. The Enclave invaded the Griffin skies a few generations ago just to get at their mountains. Calamity nodded to Reggie, who took a long drag on her cigarette and spat a curse at the sky. When the war ended, Calamity added, the Pegasi had about 50 raptors, only 4 thunderheads, and no ability to make more, including the 4 raptors that you took out with the Balefire bomb, and the one down near Stalingrad. The Enclave has lost a dozen of their warships in under a week, more than they've lost in 200 years, and 4 of them were taken out by Ditzy-Doo's toxic rain boom. Calamity gave me a meaningful stare. The Enclave must be about pissing themselves right now. I wish he hadn't used that particular phrase. Good, I said firmly, then asked, what does this have to do with the Wonderbolts? Calamity rolled his eyes. Ain't it obvious, little Pip? I told you. The Enclave keeps all Pegasi who can do the sonic rain boom real close. Oh, now I got it. The Wonderbolts. Any Pegasus who proved capable of performing a sonic rain boom was drafted into the Enclave's celebrity hit squad. That meant the ponies hunting us were all that good. I liked Calamity's plan even less. And when the Enclave saw what Ditzy-Doo did, I guessed, putting the pieces together, they pulled the Wonderbolts into... I searched for an appropriate phrase. Emergency technical meetings? Calling on their expertise to try and handle this new threat? Calamity nodded. Something like that. They have no idea how many ghoul Pegasi live down here, he stated, causing me to think back to the flock of zombie Pegasi we had run into from the Cloudsdale outskirts. And if Ditzy-Doo could do it, theoretically, just about any significantly radiated ghoul Pegasi should be capable of pulling off a toxic rain boom. Yes, the Enclave really must be pissing themselves. Upshot is, I reckon we got a few days before the Wonderbolts are hot on our trails. God was talking to Ditzy-Doo when I entered the store. Cage and the bodyguard were next to them, huddled around a spool table, playing a game involving rectangles of hardened paper. My curiosity urged me to divert long enough to peek at the game. Each griffin held a number of the colorful marked papers in their talons. There were 6 more piles of papers face up on the table, as well as 2 face down, that they seemed to be drawing new papers from as they played. I would have watched longer, trying to understand the rules, but I didn't want to leave Watcher waiting. And besides, the game was clearly not for ponies. A unicorn might be able to hold those little papers, fanned like that, but why learn a game you couldn't play with your Pegasi or Earth Pony friends? Trotting up to Gowd, who was nodding at something Ditzy-Doo had written on a chalkboard, I interrupted as politely as I could. Ditzy-Doo stepped back, nodding with a smile. Gowd, there's something I need from you. I asked her to do this favor, but the little pony in my head reminded me that favors weren't how Gowd worked. Gowd expected a contract. The gruff female griffin looked down at me with her one good eye, her expression unreadable. Sorry, kid. But you ain't my type. But, she thought I was. But then, what else would she think after her daughter caught me looking at her? It's nothing like that. I stomped, recovering. Part of me wanted to bury myself and hide until I drowned in my own embarrassment. But this was too important. And besides, I wasn't interested in her like that. I mean, sure, but I had homage. And it was very likely that I wasn't going to be around much longer. The last damn thing I was going to do with my remaining days here was cheat on homage. The little mare in my head whimpered, "I'm not helping." Gadwina raised an eyebrow. Well, of course not. I mentally hissed at the little pony. She's a griffin, with children, which highly suggested that she was interested in other griffins, male ones. And while I was even having this discussion with myself, trying to get back on track, I asserted, "You have a contract to protect this town, right?" "Yes," the griffin said slowly, her face shifting into a stern expression of negotiation. "But you didn't protect it. Ditsy-Do here did." "Yes," she said again, even more slowly. "And now, there's a real good chance that the Enclave will come after her. And they'll probably wipe out the town to get at her, if she's here." I could see Ditsy-Do's eyes widen. God hadn't been in Friendship City, but Ditsy-Do had seen the horrible lengths the Enclave would go to. God was looking at Ditsy-Do and frowning. "She's hired Gilgamesh as her personal bodyguard, but I take it you think I need to do more." I detailed what I wanted God to do. About halfway through my explanation, her good eye widened, and she turned to me in shock. "Are you insane?" Apparently, all the ponies in this town were crazy, including me. "I was with you until the Dragon Cave, but I think asking me and my griffins to fly Ditsy above the cloud curtains and into the home of a dragon is stretching the contract I've made with this town a mite too far. The dragon won't be hostile. Not to you, I promise." "You do you?" She fixed me with an appraising look. "Your relationship with dragons seemed to have changed since I last saw you." "This dragon doesn't eat ponies," I asserted. "Or griffins. At least, I was pretty sure Spike didn't eat griffins." "What did Spike eat, anyway? Just gems?" "Well, if you want me to liberally intercept the contract to include dragon visiting," God suggested, "then maybe you can see your way to liberally interpreting what we're getting paid." I was going to be broke after this, but it was worth it to keep Ditsy-Do safe. And Silverbell. "Okay, but you'll have to take both of them, Ditsy-Do and her daughter. As soon as... Where is Silverbell anyway? Shouldn't she be back by now?" I looked at Ditsy-Do. Some pony should be watching that filly. The thought struck me swiftly. Where's Zenith? Worry became panic when Stiletto burst in, looking nastily smug. "Hey, Derpy, that ditzy filly of yours is up at Railrat Station. Need you something bad." The bodyguard, Gilgamesh, was fast. Ditsy-Do was faster. She'd flown out of the door, leaving paper rectangles swirling through the air in her backwash, even before my mind could process what the Shattered Hoof Raider had said. Shooting Silhouette a nasty look, and then why aren't you helping? I raced into the night storm after her. Gilgamesh was in front of me, Calamity behind. I heard Gadwina order Cage to watch the store just before the door banged closed behind us. Yep, this was what wet felt like. I thought I was wet a few minutes ago. Wow, was I wrong. The rain was heavier now, falling in sheets that drenched me to the bone before I'd gotten to the street. But I didn't care. All I cared about was Silverbell. The pony in my head was biting her hooves, insisting that I should have gone or gotten the two of them to safety sooner. Why did I have to fall asleep? My hooves splashed in the river beneath me. Calamity and Gilgamesh were faster, reaching the station house that had been claimed by New Appaloosa's mayor/sheriff. Ditsy-Doo was already at the front door. The lights were out. Not good. I floated out little Macintosh. Kicking, on my eyes forward sparkled. I tried to call out to Ditsy-Doo, to urge caution, but it was too late. The gold Pegasus spun in the air and bucked the door open, revealing blackness inside. My EFS compass lit up with dozens of light, just as Ditsy-Doo pivoted back and flew into the dark maw of the doorway. It was a trap. I lifted little Macintosh in front of me, galloping as fast as I could to catch up. Wait. None of the lights on my EFS compass were a hostile red. A flash flood of light poured out of Railroad Station as dozens of colorful New Appaloosans shouted in unison, "Surprise!" I nearly shot a balloon. A cake floated into view, surrounded by a caramel-colored field of magic, followed by a familiar yellow unicorn pony with an orange and beige striped mane. The cake was baked in the shape of a giant muffin, echoing the many muffins on the nearby table with a glittering banner. "Thank you, Ditsy-Doo." Ditsy-Doo stood in the middle of the room, wide-eyed and stunned. "Do you like it?" Silverbell asked anxiously. "It's a party." The filly seemed nervous. "For you," she added. I could tell from her wide, glistening eyes, and many of the decorations, that the little lavender filly must have worked on this surprise party thank you herself. Probably planned it. There was still a touch of Pinky Bell in her, and at some level, this must be triggering odd emotions in the young girl. Ditsy-Doo made those fears evaporate when she flew to Silverbell, scooping up the filly against her breast and lavishing her with kisses until the girl was crying with happiness. Soon, everypony was enjoying the party. "Hello, Crane," I said, turning to the yellow unicorn. "I thought I saw your telekinesis out there yesterday morning." Kane grinned. "Thanks for the catch." "Thank you," he insisted. "Couldn't have done without your help. And that little filly's," he added, looking over at Silverbell, who was trying to regain her ability to stand after a dizzying amount of hugging. That was the first magic that little gal managed since her horn grew back. I honestly think seeing Mommy there do that rad boom is what did it. Somehow, I was certain he was right. I spent the next hour catching up. Mostly involved me reeling about him with all the telekinetic tricks I'd managed over the past 2 weeks. Or months. To my delight, Crane was dully impressed with my creativity. But it wasn't until I told him about my telekinetically flying that I managed to surprise him with my telekinetic prowess. "Damn, girl," he said, wide-eyed. "That took me years of work to pull off." I felt a little crestfallen that I hadn't managed something unique, but Crane wasn't considered the best telekinetic in the Equestrian Wasteland for nothing. And at least my learning curve was faster. "How far can you get?" "I can manage 1 lap on New Appaloosa before running out of juice." "I don't really know," I admitted. I'd made it from the ground to Calamity's shack, but I'd never tested to see how much further I could push it. "I'm afraid I'll burn out again if I try to push myself too hard." "You been burning out?" he asked. I nodded. "Why you been pushing yourself? I'm not surprised." We both jumped as something in the room exploded in confetti. "Good news is, there's a remedy for that," Crane told me, as he floated up bits of confetti off the two of us, depositing them in a waste bin. A cure for burnout? He had my full attention. Sadly, the wasteland might not have it for much longer. Requires a few plants that only grew in the everfree forest. Reckon they're all burned up by now. Oh, well, crap. "I might be willing to part with a few of my bottles of it, though," Crane said slyly. "For a favor." "Right. Should have seen this coming. Plus, Crane's last favor involved a stable full of chimeras. I'm a little busy being hunted right now, I admitted. If I live through this, I'll keep your offer in mind. Maybe the first time ever that I had turned down a distracting quest. But I really couldn't spare the time. Unless... This favor. Is any pony in danger? Nope, said Crane. I felt a wash of relief. Least, not that I can know of. Well, that was something at least. There's a farm out on the edge of the Everfree Forest, near the Hope Solar Array, close enough to Everfree for the ground to be farmable. A farm near Everfree? Maybe there was something in the air. Maybe the crazy was contagious. Sprung up out of nowhere last spring. No idea who built it. Seems like the ponies went through a lot of effort, and then abandoned the place. Or, more likely, got themselves slaughtered by something wandering out of the forest. Crane shrugged. In the background, I spotted Ditsy Doo enjoying a muffin. She had one ear cocked. I suspected she was listening in. We could sorely use those crops, especially now, Crane started. But local folks have weird rumors about the farm. First pony tried to move out that way, came back to the town a few times saying it's haunted. Then he stopped coming to the town at all. That was a while ago. Could use a pair of eyes scoping that place out, letting us know if it's safe to move into. He wiggled his eyebrows. Assuming you ain't afraid of the headless horse. I mulled it over. Tell you what, if I'm out that way, I'll poke around, see what I can find, and let you know. I told him, adding, for the remedy. But my plate's pretty full right now. Ditsy Doo trotted over. She had scribbled a new message on one of her chalkboards, hanging from her neck. Don't worry, because they say the farm is haunted. No reason to avoid the place. Ghosts don't exist. Just landmines. I blinked. Landmines? Ditsy Doo's pet theory, Crane explained. Given the bloody body parts and pieces where the ground looked like it had exploded. Meanwhile, Ditsy Doo was wiping off her chalkboard. A moment later, she offered. Bring me any mines you find, please. I'll trade you caps. And grenades. Yep. Definitely contagious. Silverbelt galloped up excitedly. Come on, Mommy. Zenith has started Pin the Tail on the pony. Wanna play? The blonde-maned filly started tugging Ditsy Doo away before the ghoul could answer. Wait, Zenith started a game? Then, on a second thought, regaining orientation and maintaining accuracy while blinded did sound like something the zebra would be familiar with. I perked my ears, taking a moment to look and listen for the party around me. There was music playing from an old recorder player, similar to the one Homage had, only in far worse condition. The songs were happy and carefree. All the furniture in Railright's living room had been pushed back, and there were ponies dancing with each other. It felt like a touch of the sun's light had been captured and was alive in the room. Firelight was perched on Railright's hat rack. She was bobbing her head, letting out musical whistles as she stared at her colored and distorted reflections in a cluster of balloons. I suspected she'd gotten into the spiked punch. Spike! Crap! I still needed to tell him about God and Ditsy Doo. Excuse me, Crane, I said hastily. I'll be right back. Take your time, the yellow pony claimed. I got something that needs doing. I galloped out the door. I passed Godwinna. She was standing outside, listening to the party. I stopped, skidding in the mud. Are you okay? She nodded. You've got a deal. 500 bottle caps, and I'll have those two snug away in the Dragon's Cave by tomorrow evening. She shook her head. Hope you know what you're doing. Those two, they deserve a good life. I'd entertained a fleeting worry that the party had upset her. it would have been easy to be angry over the flash of panic those ponies had caused. How could I have ever doubted you? A little voice in my head asked. It could have happened to any of us, another answered. The little pony in my head started looking around for the source of the other voices. I shook my head to clear it of strange thoughts. No, the truth was that seeing Ditsy Doo and Silverbell together had touched the gruff Griffin commander, and she'd step outside to think. Thank you, I told her. I started to turn back towards where Watcher was waiting, but halted again. What is your type? I found myself forced to ask. Unattached, Godwinna Grimfeathers told me bluntly. The answer brought a smile to my face. From a certain perspective, I supposed that having a mare friend was like a contract. God respected the contract, and I couldn't respect some pony who didn't. Come on, Silverbell coaxed with big, bright eyes, trying to pull me away from my conversation with Candy. Come and dance with me. I looked at the adorable little filly, being so earnest and adorable. How could I say no? I glanced up towards her mother, wondering how she'd managed. The wall-eyed ghoul was watching her daughter lovingly, and gave me a sympathetic smile. Waving goodbye to Candy, who notably had been responsible for bringing the adult punch, I followed the little lavender unicorn out to the dance floor. The party went on late into the night. Exhausted from dancing, I found an empty table and plopped my tail down next to it, floating over a glass of the adult punch. It had a peculiar and delicious berry flavor, and shed just enough radiation to make my pip-buck click. I'd made the mistake of asking about it. Mutt fruit punch tasted better when I didn't know what was in it. Zenith joined me. The little ones are fallen asleep, she shouted. We have put her to bed upstairs in the mayor's room. Better than taking her home in the rain. Plus, it kept her and Ditsy Doo close. The Griffin guard is watching her. I wondered if Gilgamesh ever slept. From something I'd overheard, I knew I wasn't the only pony in town to ask that. How are you doing? I asked. I am not a mother, Zenith said. I can be a guard, a protector, but no more. I envy them. Maybe you can't be a mother, I said, as I recalled how Zenith stayed to help the zebras in Glyphmark learn about the arts of stealth, how she instructed them in making dash. But you can be more than just a guard. You can be a teacher. Zenith didn't know what to say to that, so she drank her mutt fruit punch, and I drank mine. At the table nearby, a familiar trio of younger ponies were spending the party discussing what they should name their group. The olive pony was suggesting the Wasteland Rangers. No, the amber mare said. That would sound like we're trying to copy Applejack's Rangers. We need something more original. I know, the olive-coated buck said, raising a hoof. How about the Ouroboros? The what now? The amber mare asked, confused. It's a snake, eating its own tail. The buck explained. Ew! Why would we want to call ourselves that? No, the buck clarified. It's an old symbol about renewal, and we are trying to make Equestria renew itself, right? You sure about that? The khaki-coated buck asked. No, the amber mare insisted, shaking her head. No snakes of any kind. There's nothing heroic about snakes. I thought she had a point. What kind of group of friends would name themselves after snakes? Leaning over, I offered, if you want something heroic, how about Crusaders? I watched the young hero's eyes light up. I happen to know the name has a pretty illustrious history. Not to mention, they seem to come in threes. Oh yeah, the amber mare exclaimed. The Wasteland Crusaders! I was smiling as I turned back to my drink. The conversation from the other table having become more excited as the young heroes plotted how they were going to change Equestria. I still didn't know their names, although now I sort of did. Calamity joined me at the table, followed by Reggie, both smiling and chatting. Struck by a suspicion, I asked, "You two have met before, haven't you?" "Yep," Calamity told me as a pale blue unicorn mare trotted by, offering cake and muffins. I took a plate of cake and nibbled at it. "Yep, muffin flavored." "Calamity here built my guns." Reggie smirked proudly. "Yep, met a couple years ago. She and her brother were flying protection for caravans between New Appaloosa and the Republic," Calamity said again, then assured me with a grin. "Didn't know she was related to your feathered fantasy, though." I moaned. My ears flattened and my cheeks turned red as Reggie didn't hold back her snickering. I was never going to hear the end of this, was I? "You're worse than Velvet." I immediately regretted the reference, seeing the pain it brought. It was contagious. I found myself thinking of Velvet Remedy, and of Steel Hooves, and how much I wished they were here right now, able to enjoy this party with us. Without them, the party seemed... Reggie yanked our thoughts away from friends no longer with us, by pulling out one of her pistols and setting it on the table. I'd never seen a design quite like it before. Calamity here took two .223 rifles, cut them down, and modified them into the most boss pair of pistols in the Equestrian wasteland. I gave an appreciative whistle, wondering how they stacked up against Little Macintosh. "I'm hoping Calamity here can fix me up with some quick reloaders," Reggie added, pulling out a cigarette, only for Calamity to hoof-wave her to put it away. "Lost a few when the Enclave attacked Shattered Hoof." "What happened?" I asked, remembering DJ Pone 3's mention of the attack on the radio. "Lame-ass party, if you can't even smoke," Reggie grumbled, then shrugged. "They attacked. We fought back. We kicked their metal tails to the moon. What's to know?" Seeing as we weren't satisfied, she sighed. "Fine. Apparently, some pony high in the Enclave has some brains," she admitted. "Cottoned onto the idea of sending their soldiers on strikes against raiders first. Set the right first impression, paint the right picture of what the wasteland is all about, and those bucks and mares won't hesitate when they tell them to wipe out a town. Not like previous encampments, the attacking Pegasus had said. These are foals, families." Calamity was staring despondently at his cake. "Makes sense." "Yeah," Reggie claimed. "And at the rate they're going, they're going to wipe out the wasteland clean of raiders by the end of the month." She grimaced. "The problem is, no pony told him the Shattered Hoof wasn't a raider stronghold anymore. Well, probably for them." The young griffin grinned broadly. "They didn't send in any of those warbirds. They just sent a whole flock of troops. At least 3 dozen. And we wrecked 'em. All that fancy armor and firepower ain't worth shit in the sky if you don't have the expertise to back 'em up." I blinked. That was certainly a new take on the threat of the Enclave. But then, the Talons were professional mercenaries, heavily armed and with years of wasteland experience. Reggie pushed herself away from the table. "Anyway, scene's getting stale, and I promised Cage I'd bring him some cake, so I'm bailing." The griffin had walked about 2 yards away from us when she spun around, moved back, and jabbed with a sharp talon into our table. "Oh, and just so you know, wherever you're going next, Cage and I are going with you." "What?" "No argument. I don't know what you all are up to, but all of Equestria tends to benefit from your victories." Reggie looked at us over, dropping her voice. "Mom ain't never gonna admit it, but she's damn thankful for what you all did out of Splendid Valley. The goddess, her plans for griffins weren't exactly pretty. no unity for griffins. Once all the ponies were her children, and anything that could challenge them was on the chopping block. Half the reason Red Eye's army got so many of our kind working for him, why some of us like Stern were so loyal to him. Zenith was drinking punch from a bowl cup, which clattered to the floor. It was because they knew he was plotting against the goddess. Calamity, Zenith, and I looked at each other. Reggie continued. Weigh my bro when I see it. You're the best hope this wasteland has going for it. And you're 2 soldiers down, including your heavy gunner. Just as things were getting to their most dangerous. You need us. This was surprising, to say the least. And not how Talons operated. Or, at least, not how God operated. But we haven't hired you. The thought was immediately followed by, what does your mother think? Y'all might change your minds when you hear what you're heading into. Don't much care, Reggie insisted. We're hiring ourselves to do this, lest you lot think you can outrun us. We'll be glad to take you up on the help, Zenith stated, then looked at me. Am I not right, little one? I looked at Calamity again. Maybe, just maybe, we'd be able to survive his plan, after all. In the cold drizzle of dawn, I saw 4 dozen forms of black carapace armor rising up over the city gates and flying to town. For a moment, I felt panic and rage. The Enclave was attacking again, but that notion fled as I noticed a shimmer of caramel-colored magic surrounding the suits of Enclave armor, and realized there were no ponies inside. The heavy gate rumbled open, and Crane entered New Appaloosa. He was not alone. Walking just behind him was a haggard-looking charcoal unicorn, streaks of scarlet and gold in her white mane. She was wearing Rarity's battle dress and yellow medical boxes for saddlebags. Her. Velvet Remedy halted, eyes widening as she saw me. We stared at each other through the haze of rain between us, a muddy river of a street stretching between us. She flinched back as I broke into a gallop. There was pain between us, but the emotional hurting was eclipsed by hope I felt at seeing her again. She tried to backpedal, but I had her in a hug before she could escape. You're here? She asked meekly. Of course you're here. Goddesses, we've missed you, I told her, not letting her go. Please tell me you're back. I came to help, she said hesitantly. I was visiting Steelhooves, and I saw the explosion. She got here late last night, Crane told me. Been helping to tend the Pegasi wounded to fly back home. Of course she was. Velvet Remedy didn't ask if they were the good guys, and who were the bad guys. She stopped to help the first hurting ponies she came across. Didn't matter who they were. I hoped her kindness to the enemy had left a lasting impression on them. I've been collecting their armor, Crane said, motioning upwards with his horn. Reckon it's a fit gift for Ditsy Doo. Help repay what the town owes her. I found myself loving Crane just a little bit right then. She is the one who took him down, after all. Sensing an opportunity to change the subject, Velvet Remedy pointed a hoof at Crane. This one's been claiming he's the best telekinetic in the wasteland, she said indignantly. Obviously, he hasn't met you. Crane and I exchanged looks. He chuckled. I gave him a respectful little bow, which he returned. Or, I was wrong. As usual. Velvet sighed, watching us. Crane is my teacher, I explained. Taught me how to unlock my telekinetic potential? Goddesses, that sounded lame. I'm late on reading too many Swordmare comics. Too much being one. Zenith whispered, where did she come from? Into my ear. You must stay, and now the student has become the master. I blinked, still processing Zenith's stealth appearance. What? Why? It is expected, she whispered earnestly. I shook my mane. By who? The zebra didn't seem to have an answer. Crane walked on, floating the several dozen suits of scavenged armor towards absolutely everything. Zenith stepped back, seeming to fade into the weather. Silverbolt was right. The zebra was kind of creepy. Velvet Remy and I were alone in the rain. Velvet, Little Pip. No, you go first. Go ahead. We stopped trying to talk. The silence stretched awkwardly, scored by the metallic hiss of rain against railway cars. Little Pip, the things I said, Velvet began again. They were so horrible. I took a deep breath. Her words still felt fresh. The pain cut deep. But you weren't wrong, I told her, and you tried to protect me. You were hurting so much, and you still warned me away. Tried to get me good, or to go. I said, realizing it was true. It's my fault. I wouldn't leave. The man who keeps poking a hornet's nest deserves to get stung. I wondered briefly if hornets still existed in Equestria. I'd only seen them in books. Velvet Remedy shook her head, her striped mane flapping wetly. No, they were cruel, and hypocritical. She shrugged off her medical boxes. The yellow boxes with the pink butterflies sank into the brown water. I'm not worthy to follow Fluttershy, or to be your friend. I saw she was trembling. Fatigue and cold were certainly part of it. She might have galloped all the way from Fetlock. It was not a short journey. I put a hoof under her chin, looking into her eyes. It wasn't just the rain. She was crying. But I want to, she continued. I let the wasteland poison me. I know that. And I was right. Most ponies don't deserve to be helped. But that's not the reason I do it. I understood. I knew what it was like to have your faith in the goodness of ponies shaken. I felt it back at the pit. All those slaves I was trying to save, cheering for my death. But unlike Velvet, that had never been the primary foundation of my urge to help. I know it's up to me. I want to be stronger than the wasteland. Not let it poison me anymore. She faltered. But I'm not sure how. Homage was right. The Equestrian wasteland is hard on heroes. No. It's brutal to them. It beats them down. It tears them apart. Eventually, every hero falls. Inevitably, every hero falls. The true mark of a hero is not that they never fall, never fail. No. You know a true hero by what they do after they fall. By the way they pick themselves up again, shake themselves off, and throw themselves back into the good fight. Velvet, Fluttershy would be proud of you. I started. I was unsure if I was saying the right thing, but it came from my heart. That had to count for something, right? She would want you to be by her side. It doesn't matter if you stumbled. We've all done things we regret. You know I have. No pony is perfect. No pony is strong all the time. Do you think Applejack never lied? That Rarity was never greedy? Or that Pinkie Pie was never sad? Even Fluttershy had her gardens of Canterlot. I gave her a tender and hopeful uplifting smile. What matters is that you don't let your failures stop you. Velvet stared at me for a long time, tears streaming down her eyes. There seemed to be a battle raging inside of her. Thank you. I don't deserve friends like you, she said finally. Pulling her head away, she stared at the muddy water, concealing her hooves. After a pregnant pause, she let out a trembling, whiny, "It's my fault, Steelhooves is dead." What? I looked up. Or she looked up. I'm sorry. When you didn't come back, Steelhooves wanted to move. But I knew that clearing was where you were expecting us to be. And the others thought you were dead. But I refused to believe it. Her voice was slowly rising, touching on hysteria. I insisted that we stay close, believing that if you did survive the Balefire bomb, you were fighting to get to us. And we had to be there when you finally made it. Trembling, she wailed. I'm the reason it was so easy for the Hellhounds to find us. I made us keep camping so close to the same spot every day. Velvet Remedy broke down, sobbing. I wrapped my hooves around her, holding her tight, understanding her pain, forgiving it, and thanking her for what she had done because of why she had done it. Please tell me you'll come with us again. I whispered finally. We love you. We need you. Being without you is like walking with an open wound. I hugged her tightly. We miss you so much. Velvet began. She pushed back, breaking out of the hug, and stood staring at me, only falling raindrops between us. Little Pip. Shwam! A rust and orange-colored streak plowed into Velvet Remedy, knocking her out of sight as she was driven into the mud, with Calamity on top of her. Velvet! Calamity cheered, nuzzling the exceptionally muddy mare. Good to see you too, she said weakly. Calamity stepped back, looking at his mud-covered love. Oops, he said, blushing. Let me help you up. Before Velvet or I could say anything, Calamity had flown across the street, grabbing a rain barrel from in front of Railright Station. Splash! Calamity dumped the barrel over Velvet Remedy. Velvet sighed. Well, at least I was already wet. And she wasn't muddy anymore. It's good to have you back, Calamity told her, never questioning that she was. Velvet Remedy splashed a hoof timidly. If you'll have me. Who's being a silly pony? Calamity chided. Velvet looked at him. I want to be back. I want to help. Her voice was shy of pleading. Calamity lowered his muzzle into the muddy water and pulled out her medical boxes, putting them back over her. I watched as she thanked him, and he teased threateningly to kiss her with his muddy muzzle. It is like things are finally going to go right again, is it not? Zenith asked, having ninja'd right up beside me. I nodded. The rain was beginning to stop. Suddenly, looking at Velvet and Calamity, I knew. The very last pieces fell into place. Kindness and loyalty. Was there ever any doubt?